Hi, and welcome to AXSchat. We're delighted to welcome back Paul Smyth from Barclays. We've got some exciting news to announce today. So, Paul, you've always been a big supporter and friend of AXSchat, but perhaps you'd like to reveal quite how big a friend to AXSchat you and Barclays.
Okay, well, thanks, Neil, Antonio, Deborah, the three AXSchat amigos and the wider AXSchat community. I've been wowed for you folks have been running this over the last 3 or 4 years as a labour of love, and I think as the AXSchat community has got so huge, as you've been so effective at evangelising, it's kind of shown there's a real need for this. And I guess from Barclays' perspective, you might have seen the Barclays Access Twitter chat. My team, I have an amazing team, lots of smarter people than I am, and we get so much out of it each week and week. We've been participating for a number of weeks and months as one of a few corporate brands. And really what we're pleased to say now is taking that one step up, so being a corporate supporter of the AXSchat's efforts and websites, so really to show how much value and benefit we get out of it, and really a call to action for more corporates, for more organisations to get involved, engaged over time. So great news, and really excited to kind of see how we can take things to the next level over the coming few months.
And we're really excited about this. We've been talking about it for a while. It's great to actually get it out in the open. The secret's out finally. Getting me and Deborah or Antonio to keep a secret is quite quite tough, especially when we're excited. So no, this is great news, and we want to be clear. AXSchat's still free to everyone, and the whole point of Barclays supporting us is to help that continue and help it be sustainable and to grow. So we're really delighted. We know from our work with you, and from my professional work, also working with you across other organizations, what great work you're doing and how closely we're aligned in terms of our mission and goals. So we're delighted to have you as a partner in this. We're really excited to welcome Barclays as a supporter, and later on we can talk about t-shirts, because that's obviously going to be what's obsessing everybody. When do we get the t-shirts? So I know that Deborah's got a comment, so fire away, Deborah.
Thank you. And Paul, first of all, thank you for your leadership. And thanks to Barclays for your leadership, because as you know, we're very global. So I'm in the United States, and I and many others in the United States have been watching Barclays for years and been very impressed with the leadership that Barclays is showing. We've actually seen so much happening in the UK with the Barclays, the BBCs, the ATOS, and others. And so when Neil and Antonio asked me to be part of AXSchat, I thought it was such a good idea, but I never could have imagined the community growing the way it did so much. I could never have imagined. And Barclays has been a brand that has been there every week, over and over and over and over again. And I know Paul and other people that are watching it, I know that other corporations have joined, have been featured, and actually there's quite a few corporations in the United States that are lurking, and I mean that positively, but they're watching, but they're afraid to participate too much just because of the litigious nature that we have right now in the United States. But the continued leadership from Barclays is very impressive, and we love that you're part of the community, Paul. You and your team have been amazing, but to support what we're doing on AXSchat it's just a real blessing to us, and we really, really appreciate it. And I'll turn the mic over to you, Antonio, because I'm sure you also feel the same way.
No, when we started this, we knew that we could do something interesting, but then when AXSchat was able to evolve and we started to have guests one after the other, and the conversations was able to grow, we're able to see clearly that there was a strong focus on having good conversations about accessibility, and also bringing this type of conversations outside the normal communities. So if we look back to the speakers that we had over time, we had people that are, you know, leaders in this area of industry, but we also had other people that, a few of them that don't necessarily relate with accessibility as professionals, but they were able to help us to bring this type of conversation outside the space, and we found that also very important, including a lot of them. They did a very interesting work helping us out to spread the word to other communities, or sometimes even starting evangelizing about accessibility inside their own organizations. That, after all, that was one of the objectives of AXSchat, is to make organizations and everything more accessible. So the fact that we have this type of support, I think, is going to be very helpful for us, and is going to we are going to be able to improve a few small things, considering that the three of us were all being volunteers over this period of time.
Yeah. No, great to hear. And, you know, it strikes me when I reflect, you've mentioned that you've been running this for sort of 3 years, and it's been incredibly consistent that you're all doing this on a voluntary basis. And I know I had the pleasure of meeting Neil and Deborah last month in Washington at a Enabling conference. And it struck me over that same 3-year period, there was something else going on about how the role of an accessibility expert, a professional, has kind of changed. And it sort of struck me that when we spoke to lots of the organisations at these conferences, they were kind of still talking about the culture of compliance. You know, maybe that's an America thing, but still about, you know, the getting the right policy and processing in place to make sure the products you build or websites you have are kind of compliant for the disabled. And really, we're now starting to see some organisations lift their head above the parapet and try and say, well, that's not enough. You know, within Barclays, the way we think about accessibility is kind of different. As our agenda has matured, so too has our thinking that accessibility kind of goes beyond disability. It's about creating a great experience for a greater number of people. It's not just for legal have to, but it's for kind of commercial, moral want to. And we're seeing more and more corporates and brands realise this, and realise that kind of getting your policies and process right, getting compliance, isn't the goal, it's kind of the starting point. And when actually the mountain to climb, you know, if that were base camp, the mountain to climb is about the cultural change. It's about the people and engagement. You know, it's how do you engage your colleagues on why accessibility matters to you, to your organisation? How do you educate your suppliers? How do you get disability champions and leaders to convince themselves and those around them this isn't just admirable, but it's kind of essential? And that requires a very different set of skills. So as there's been that sort of organisational mindset change, I think over the last 3 years, there's also been a demand for accessibility professionals, their skill sets to change. You know, 3 years back, these were technical auditors and consultants who either, you know, worked for or contracted for major tech firms. Now we see it sort of rippling out across every service provider that seems to have a website or mobile app. And really, when we set up even the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, or IAAP, 3-4 years back, you know, that was rare then. But really what's rare now is this folks that have these hybrid skills, that they get the technical coding and auditing, but they have the hybrid skills of the people side of things, how to evangelize, how to consult and engage with disabled and older people using your stuff. You know, the business skills of how to prioritize and drive change. And really that's what's rare now. And you don't get that going to accessibility conferences, preaching to the choir, and it's lovely to meet the same old friends and faces there. But we get that from bursting the bubble, right? We get that from sort of talking to people who are outside of our kind of accessibility bubble. And I think for me, AXSchat does that in a really neat way of kind of bringing in more interesting speakers, but more interested parties via Twitter. And it's no surprise, right, that it's kind of grown the reach and impact that it's having. But it says something to me that there is a huge demand and appetite for this, the amount of people involved and engaged. You know, so that's my views when I look back and kind of reflect over the last 3 years.
No, I had situations where people, because of a tweet, they just, can I talk with you? Can I send you a private message? Yes, you can. No, are you available for 10 minutes conversation on Skype? Just about what you know, I was looking for the Twitter feeds about accessibility, but I always look at accessibility as something different. And then you end up working, talking and randomly with people. And then when you clarify what this is all about, they end up becoming supporters. Sometimes they don't join every week because we understand that nobody has the time to join every week. Everybody has their lives and events and things, but they end up being part of the community and becoming very interesting supporters, even if they are not directly accessibility professionals.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that was something that we had the intention right from the get-go, was to go beyond the bubble. I understood, and I think Deborah too understood the need to engage a wider community. We were already doing social. We'd already been independently trying out some of this stuff, but I think that both through the growth of the community and the choice of guests, and we've consciously tried to bring in people that are outside of the technical sphere. We welcome the people in the technical sphere. We work in that world too, but this is about broader interest. And we don't want to be preaching to the choir. We want to be out there engaging a much wider audience. And one of the I suppose one of the benefits that I've really found in my day job, because this is, why would you do another job outside of your day job? Well, the benefits are because I love it, but and it's been fun, and it's been a heck of a ride, and I've made some great friends, but also it has bolstered our careers for sure. It's enabled us to build a fantastic database of contacts. We grow our influence and everything else, but also I can point people to, oh, well, we did this AXSchat with this person on this topic, and this is going to engage you on this. And so what you find is you've then got this rich base of material that you can use and leverage to within our own organization, or within our supplier organizations, or our partners, or even our customers, say, well, actually, yes, this topic is relevant, and here's why, and have you seen this? We interviewed this person. So it's had a direct benefit to my employer, because there's the halo effect of credibility of the fact that we're doing this stuff. It's had a direct benefit to Deborah's organization too, because it's increased the visibility, and so so even though it's voluntary work, and yes, we've been doing stuff out of our own pockets, and it's great to have the support so that we're not having to dip into our pockets. It's been worthwhile. And yes, and we're hoping to grow, and I say, when I say sustainable, and we actually want to continue to grow and be ambitious to see what other channels we can also engage on.
Well, I'll tell you what, Neil, why don't we sort of pull on this thread a bit? I mean, I've been on in the AXSchat interview chair before, right? You know, for folks who haven't seen that, please go back. You can find out about Barclays and our accessibility efforts. But really what I'd like to do today is I've kind of given you my reflections. You've kind of started to expand on that, right, Neil? But why don't we turn it around a bit, and maybe we can kind of ask you three. So, where should we start? I mean, kind of first off, you've had tons of interesting interviewers, speakers in the past 3-4 years, and you mentioned they're a mix of people with different perspectives. Which kind of speakers stood out for kind of each of you, and why? Who'd like to go first?
Go on, Deborah.
I was going to say, ladies first. Don't you like how us women, we choose when we're going to use that? So, today's a good day. So, and I'll just say before I answer that really great question, Paul, that things that it's always been very important to us for things to be fully accessible. So, making sure that the videos were captioned and things are transcribed. So, this support is really helping us. And, of course, we all know this is on Twitter, but also AXSchat is on YouTube. and we talk about it, so it's on a lot of the social media platforms, which is exciting. But I would say we've had such, and this is one thing I love about the different types of guests. So since I have such a U.S. corporate lens on, I'm really, really glad that corporations like Barclays, and we've had Enterprise Car Rental, and we've had, Atos, that's the employer of both Antonio and Neil. So they have also supported this by by understanding the contributions.
Sure.
And so I've really enjoyed having the multinational corporations on the show to talk about what they're doing, because what's happened in the United States with my beloved country is that we are looking at it from compliance. We are looking at it litigation, our legislation. We're trying to figure out who we are in the United States right now. But I found that as an author, when I was writing books or I was asking different corporations, whether I work with them or not, to tell us as a community what they were doing, they were very, very hesitant. So I know a lot of the U.S. corporations have really been very interested in what's happening on AXSchat, because they might not openly participate because there's they're afraid to, and the reality is we will sue you in the U.S. Even if you're doing good stuff, we'll still sue you. It's just part of who we are in the U.S. and love being a U.S. citizen. But it complicates things. And so what we're finding is that the U.S. corporations, they're not really in the global conversations in the way I would like them to be in. And so looking at it from that lens, I think it's been very empowering for U.S. companies to see Barclays there every week. And so it's like, why would Barclays Bank, a multinational, huge global organization, care about this conversation? So they've learned a lot from Barclays being on. We've had Microsoft on with Ginny, who was amazing. So I liked that we had corporations represented by people. So I think we humanized some of the corporations in the conversation. And then, of course, I love people's stories. So Carolyn, we had mentioned before we started, of Hospital Glam, was a favorite. I love some of the actors, Kieran Shaw, I've been a fan of his. I remember the first time I met him in Kenya, where he was born. I was so starstruck. It's like, hello. I was just, because I've seen this man in so many movies, whether I knew sometimes it was him or not, because he does a lot of costumes and stuff. But I love that. But something I love about AXSchat, I love my partners, Paul and Antonio. And we often say that Antonio is our secret sauce, because he brings such brilliance to the group. And Neil has got such a charming personality. How can you not love Neil? But I would just have to say, for the way I want to move the needle for my family members that are impacted by disabilities, for myself, for my community, the corporations have been very empowering to the corporations that I care about in the United States. So thanks for letting me go on and on. But Antonio, yeah, let me pass it to you, Antonio, and then we'll go to Neil.
Well, one of the things that I was always trying is to bring people that's from countries where they usually don't communicate in English. They speak, or they communicate in Spanish or in other language, or in their native languages, and we often don't get information about what is happening about accessibility in those areas. So I really appreciate the fact that we have Paulo Alcazar from Colombia. We have Nos Why Not from Spain. That probably was one of my favorite chats, because it forced me to speak 2 languages, because I was basically translating what our guest was saying in Spanish to English. In the end, I ended up completely mess up. Okay, I don't know. When I was talking, I didn't know what language I was talking about anymore. There was a time that I was completely lost. But I found it very, extremely valuable to be able to bring these people to the conversation, and they end up becoming advocates of AXSchat. But it's important that we also be able to to reach people like them. Another guest and someone that is a strong supporter from AXSchat is Nabil, that you all know from, and Nabil is being an amazing participant of AXSchat, who brings a great value in the way how we express themselves, in the way how they communicate. So I'm really proud for the fact that we're able to bring someone like him to be around the Twitter chat for almost from the beginning, and for the fact that we also had a very challenging call with him, because we know that communication sometimes don't work as we like, and not all the connections around the world are the same. So we are basically, I'm resuming my favorite Twitter chats to the ones that were more technically challenged, I would say.
Okay, you like a challenge, and it's a fair point, Antonio, just for the various countries and cultures involved, and of course you guys being diligently subtitling your videos. You know, even that means it kind of now reaches an even broader audience with kind of clever translation tools. And finally, last but not least, Neil, kind of your views of what were your, you know, interesting speakers or corporate sort of guests that you've had on the show that have left a lasting impression.
I like Deborah. I a little bit starstruck in terms of I like the stuff around the performing arts. I found that interesting. You know, good interview with Kurt Jaeger, also Kieran. I think with Kieran, actually, you know, the fact that it generated a lasting contact. You know, he not only came on AXSchat, but then came and spoke at our event for GAD, and then enjoyed it so much that we stayed in touch. And even though he wasn't speaking this year, came along anyway. So you know, it's great. So it's generated friendships and challenged perceptions. I think that, again, another challenging interview in terms of technicality was the interview with Alistair Somerville from Acuity Design. That was interesting. You know, he makes you think about things in a really different way. So I thought that was really good. I mean, absolutely, the large corporations are really important, because the engaging with the large corporations is how we move accessibility forwards through the power and leverage of large corporates. You can have a really strong effect.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably too many to mention, and I certainly don't want people to feel left out. Again, with Hospital Glam, the artistic element of that really excited me. Yeah, there's lots, and
okay,
you've got. I can't go through the whole. I've got the whole list here in front of me, and I'm going, yeah, okay, well, you know, but essentially, I think some of my favorites have been ones where we're widening the net, and we're catching more people.
Sure. Well, let me maybe ask you another question then. And again, we've said about the variety of guests you get on. It's kind of similar to how we think about the cultural change, how we need to shift the needle within Barclays, and we think of it in terms of these three themes of how do we kind of educate heads, how do we inspire hearts, and how do we enable hands. It's that kind of blend of the rational, the emotional, the practical, to really make a lasting impression and shift to get more champions and so forth involved. And I'm always amazed. I'm always learning something new from the different people and perspectives you have on AXSchat. So in terms of that point about learning, kind of what learn or what wow factor have you had kind of over time, and various guests that you've met that is kind of stuck in your mind in how you apply to your day jobs, given you work in the accessibility field?
Okay, so that's a good question. It's quite a toughie. I learn something every week. Right? I learn multiple things every week. It's been probably the richest learning experience I've ever had, which is amazing. You know, it's rewarding in that sense. So I think that for me, one of the really rich ones was actually when we did the stuff on dating. I thought that was really interesting, because I'll be honest, I thought this is really tangential, and yet actually, you know, the whole stuff, we had Aaron from Easter Seals on, and it was really an engaging chat. again, it's taking stuff into new areas. So I learned a lot there. I learned to challenge my own preconceptions about what's valid and what's not, and I think that comes across a lot. I've had great feedback from our interview with Rosemary Musacchio as well. I've actually got to make some introductions after this, because I've had people in Australia say, well, they've got clients who are would love to engage, because they've not seen people have a really decent career path, and Rosemary can act as an inspiration for them. So those kind of things are really important for me, and that's been a really good learning thing. And also, as Antonio says, learning about how stuff works in other parts of the world, and not being closed-minded and thinking that it always is going to be, the way that we do stuff is best. So that's really important, and I've learned an awful lot from people like Nabil and from Lourdes and a whole bunch of other people that we've had on that have a different perspective, an equally valid one.
Yeah, no, fair point. Antonio, your view on kind of what one key learn over your time?
One of the things that challenged me was the chat that we had with Ian and with Able Gamers about gaming in accessibility, and how people use it's. No, we all like to be, to spend time doing things that we like. We all like to consume media and entertain ourselves, and knowing that there's such a strong community of people who have an interest in developing games for accessibility was something very important for me. I was able to, because what I saw in their side was a lot of commitment, passion for what they were doing, and is also a notion of a service. A lot of people, they do this because they think that it's the right thing to do, and at the same time, considering the impact of the gaming industry around the world, and I think it's very important that games and that type of entertainment industry is also able to do an effort to be more inclusive in order to reach young kids, because this is a real concern, where when kids are talking with each other, they play games, they play the other, and if the games are not accessible, or at least if kids are not able to play the same type of games when they are growing, it's also a sense of exclusion from being part of something. So I found that particularly important for me.
Sure. No, thanks, Antonio. You're right. We think about inclusive workplaces, we think about customer service, but sometimes we forget folks, people with disabilities have got, pastimes and hobbies, and what do they do in their spare time? So fair point. And nice to see that as a Twitter king, you can speak in longer than 140 characters as well. Deborah, what about you? Sort of one key learn or wow moment you've had?
Well, I think that what has really impressed me is I'm with both Antonio and Neil. I learned something every single show, but the community members that show up week after week after week after week, and also it was interesting and hard for us. I remember we were going to have one guest on about autism, and some of our community members did not like the book that the man had written, and walking that path was really painful for all three of us, because we're used to, everybody really liking what we're doing, and this was the first time we really had some pushback from our community members, and that was just a really learning experience. How do you listen but consider that you want to do this for everyone? And sometimes some of our community, they get, there's one person that doesn't like W3C, for example, and they'll know who I'm talking about when they listen to this video. And he's a wonderful, amazing, innovative guy, but to just say that W3C doesn't have a role in legislation, standards, doesn't have a role, litigation doesn't have a role, is the reality is this is a very complex topic that we're talking about. It is complex from a lot of different viewpoints, including the individuals with the disabilities, the individuals speaking different languages, the individuals coming from different perspectives. One of the things I would say that it really touched me a lot was when we interviewed the Paralympics, and Neil actually went to Brazil and was part of that group. And when we got to go, the three of us, and meet for the first time at Funka, and then we get to meet you at Enabling, the power of this community to really make sure everyone, including what's sometimes people that don't have a voice, that has really touched me, that part of AXSchat.
Yeah, and you know, huge amount of guests, lots of learns. I think all agreed we learn something each week, and we've kind of talked around this point, but I want to kind of really hit home, you know, what has been the secret of a success, because there's a huge amount of participants, of impressions. We can talk about reach and impact in numbers within Twitter. But we can also talk about, you know, why do people come back week on week to get engaged, and really the kind of how it shifted your outlook. So what do you think is, I know you mentioned, Deborah, the secret sauce being Antonio, and I think, Antonio, you're an incredibly clever social media guru. But what do you think has been this combination of things that have made AXSchat so successful over the last 3 years?
Okay, I'll go with this one. Consistency.
Yes.
It really it is. Consistency is so important. We see people try this, and it's hard work, but we're here every single week. We have not missed a week since November 2014. Now, that's partly teamwork. Now, individuals miss a week, but not many during a year. So we've done this thing, and we've committed to it, and we've stuck with it, and that means that people know it's there, and that's one of the reasons that it's grown, because people know it's going to be there. So I can give you the example. Christmas time last year, I went on holiday, and I was spending a mortgage payment on mojitos, as you do, and then I looked at my Twitter feed, and then people were like, "Where are the questions? The AXSchat questions aren't there." So, give me a break, guys. I'm on holiday. I was thinking, well, yeah, okay, but they don't know that. They expect them to be there, you know. So that just told me, yeah, we've got something here, you know. We, for sure, because people are there. They like want to know when it's happening. They're really super engaged, you know. I got feedback from Jacqueline DeRoyas, who we had on the other week. She said it was amazing, the level of engagement. She said, I started off, I didn't listen, and I didn't schedule my questions. I answered them on the fly, and her husband was there, and he said there was steam coming off the keyboard by the end of
Wow.
So yeah, the engagement, and it is huge, because we're heading towards a spread of nearly 2 billion. That's like nearly 2 billion impressions over the last nearly 3 years. So that's massive, and we have you know, there's peaks and troughs depending on time of year and everything else, but we get thousands and thousands of tweets every week. It's actually quite hard
to keep up.
Keeping up with it. Can I secretly admit, I prefer attending other people's Twitter chats. They're more relaxing. I love doing the interviews, right? But actually, running 2 accounts simultaneously, that's hard, especially for someone with a cognitive disability. So I'm running 3, because I sometimes chip in with the work one as well. But So yeah. That's
a happy problem to have. Right?
No, it's absolutely, it's a good problem, but essentially that's the thing. It's the consistency and also our attitude towards the community that we stated right from the beginning, that we are going to be relentlessly positive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll let Deborah chip in on this, because she's even more relentlessly positive than, you know, if you could have positivity carpet bombing, I think Deborah's the B-52.
Yeah, I just, it's so easy to go negative. It's so easy to say, darn that fill in the blank corporation or whatever. And it's so easy to go negative, and there's so much negative out on social media. And so we do really, because I think there's a way that you can present a grounded argument and debate. We're not saying hide from the hard issues. I'd mentioned that one about autism. When some of the members were saying they're saying this and this and this, we were seeking to understand. It's like, okay, I'm going to that page in the book, and I don't see that. I see reporters telling us what happened with history. So we seek to understand. And there's been a couple of times we've really, really made some people mad. And but I do want to say, while we're having this conversation, that we also need to openly thank Emily Ha. Emily Ha is on my team, and she's the one that is, yes, Emily deserves a big hand. She schedules our guests, makes sure that we had the bios, and there's so many moving parts that people don't realize that, and she's just been wonderful at helping us organize it. And there's been a couple of times when we're panicked, it's time for the guest, we don't have the bio, we don't have the picture, we're freaking out. And the power of community. I think that's what I love about it. It's the power of community. And like Neil said, it's got to be the consistency. It's got to be the engagement. You got to have the analytics, which, once again, Antonio really has brought in all kind of things to help us with the analytics, because we were actually, there have been times when we're the #1 tweet chat, and then there are some very big tweet, social media people that are like, what's going on with that AXSchat? And so they change the way they're doing their tweet chat so that they can get bigger than us. And I love that 3 people with this amazing community talking about true disability inclusion is making them up their game. I love that aspect of it.
3 people with a will and skill, yeah. Well, listen, we're almost at the half-hour mark. I know we've been looking back about what has made AXSchat successful. I guess final sort of question from me, right, is looking forwards, and what do you think could make AXSchat even more successful into the future? So maybe this is something about one amazing speaker you'd love to get on the show. Maybe it's about doing things differently. Any things jump to mind that you'd like to try something out, you'd like to do something, you'd like to interview someone looking ahead that you think would have that kind of wow factor?
I think one of the things that I would like to do is, I think Neil might agree with me, is to sometimes to be more present at events and speak at events that are not necessarily events that relate with accessibility. It could be events related with digital transformation, events related with smart cities, and events related with how to improve the way how we communicate related with marketing, is to bring that conversation and to talk about accessibility in that type of generic events where we can go, myself, Deborah, Neil, and have this conversation about telling the AXSchat story, talking about engagement with the community and the way how we work. I think that's something that I would like. It will be a very interesting way to expand AXSchat and at the same time spread and enlarge the reach of the work that we are trying to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Go on, Deborah.
Well, I agree with Antonio. It was really cool when the 3 of us met in person at the Funka conference in Stockholm, Sweden. Susanna had invited us to come, and it made us feel really good to see the social media analytics after that conference. They were so much stronger than there was another IT conference happening, I think, in Europe, and they paid a lot of money. I think $200,000 or something to a social media team, and our analytics just blew them away because we have such a strong community that really cares about accessibility and disability inclusion. So I agree with Antonio. I think I would love to see us get to Southwest by Southwest. I'm saying that wrong. Because once again, we are a community that cares, and we have something to say, and there's a lot that we're learning from this community, and there's a lot that other corporations can learn from leaders like you, Paul, and what you're doing. Why does Barclays care about this? And what has surprised Barclays about this journey that y'all have been on? And so I look forward to digging into some of those topics more in the future, and just changing the conversation. I personally thought social media is going to change the conversation. I am personally going to get on there, and then I was blessed to meet Antonio and Neil, and it helped broaden the voices, and bringing on assistive technology providers and smaller accessibility corporations and universities and standards boards, and it's just really exciting to give these people the microphone and let their voices be heard, even when they're not speaking in a traditional manner, like Rosemary, or the stuff they're doing with Tippy Talk, to make sure that children that can't communicate in the traditional way can communicate it. I love the power of social impact.
Sure. No, great points. And Neil,
okay.
Go on, last but not least.
So quick 2 potential guests. 1, Stephen Hawking. 2, Richard Branson. Both would be excellent guests. I would love to have on, for different reasons, absolutely, but both titans in their field. And then really, the other thing I'd like to do is see us grow out over a number of other platforms and grow the community and allow the community to do more stuff and grow. So we want to create not necessarily an ecosystem, because the social media is its own ecosystems, but sort of enable AXSchat to work across more of the social media channels and allow those conversations to happen, maybe at greater length. So I'm not a huge fan of Facebook, but I know a lot of other people are. So and you can have longer conversations than 140 characters. So I think there's stuff that we want to be doing there. I need to give a shout out to Jack, Kyle, Mark, and Amani, who have been doing all of the captioning work. They've done the transcripts for the last few years, Mark gets an extra round of applause because he's an active participant in the chats every week. But the other guys have put in the hard grind on listening to us witter on every week and had to turn that into the words for the captions, and so that's something that we're very grateful for. They've contributed too, so they need the shout out. Yeah. So that's it. I think there's loads more, but equally we have to be mindful that we've done an awful lot with what we've got so far. So we intend to leverage this, and of course the final thing is we want to talk about t-shirts. Because I remember we started talking about I don't know, it went off on a wild tangent, didn't we? I think it was about a couple of months ago, and people got quite excited by the thought of t-shirts.
Yeah, t-shirts, goodie bags, other things.
I think somebody in this call is saying, I would like to be a fashion model. I would like to go to the red carpet and show the t-shirt to everybody, to the world.
That's right.
Somebody in this call is actually positioning himself as the AXSchat model for the t-shirts.
Yeah. Well, there's some exciting work on the t-shirt front.
Yeah. And the Barclays bands that y'all have, I think those are so cool. We don't have them in the U.S. What do you call the bands that you have? Yeah, you're wearing it.
This little puppy. So this is the BPay band, and I don't know how we're doing for time. Whether we can do the story, or I'll tell you some other day maybe about some of the positive impact this is happening on customers.
No, go for it now. Just carry on rolling.
No, because this is great. Yeah.
Well, maybe, you know, when I met Neil and Deborah a month back, one of the things we were saying is, well, you know, why does Barclays care? And sometimes I feel like if I talk about, you know, we want to leverage technology to enable and empower all people to work, bank and reach their full potential, I kind of feel a bit like I've swallowed an accessibility textbook, you know, about enabling and empowering. And I think we have to kind of do a better job of putting this in a context that our company, our organisation, the industry we work in, how it matters. And there's this story that a mum contacted Barclays a few weeks back. Mum Louise, she had a teenage son who had autism, borderline non-verbal, and he was struggling when he was going out and about with his support worker to buy stuff, to have some sense of independence, right? Whether that's, I think he was using a prepaid Starbucks card so he could buy a coffee for him and his support worker when he was, you know, down in town in the shops. And, you know, Mum was saying, well, this is kind of bugging him. There must be an easier way that he can, you know, manage his money and give him that independence. So we gave him one of these BPay bracelets. It's got like the same contactless chip that would be in your plastic debit or credit card, but in a wearable, either in a bracelet or in a key ring. And it creates a second separate, bit like a virtual current account that you can top up, a bit like a top-up pay-as-you-go mobile phone. I mean, you can use it to tap in from Sainsbury's to Starbucks or wherever else that accepts contactless payments. So a few weeks went by, we heard feedback from this mum, Louise, who had complained to the bank and, you know, sort of said, well, how are you getting on? And, you know, she told us that her teenage son, he had been able to sort of use this to buy more stuff in more places more easily than ever before, right, with him and his support work. He was enabled. It kind of changed what he was able to do. That's how I, in my numpty mind, think of this. But then she went on to sort of say, but actually there was more than that. He, you know, when he tapped it on a terminal in a shop, the shopkeeper was like, wow, what is that? And this autistic son who I mentioned was non-verbal just kind of lit up like a light bulb and was like, well, this is Barclays Card BPay. This is what it is. This is how it works. This is how to get it. And I just thought, you know, he was such a great salesman. We should have got him on commission. But I think there's something about like changing his confidence, his social interactions of how he talked to not just friends and family, but strangers and shopkeepers. It empowered him. And for me, that's about changing what you can become. So again, going back to that sentence and to sort of really bring it to life, you know, for Barclays, we think about leveraging inclusive tech to enable and empower all people to work, bank and reach their full potential. And I think sort of stories like that make it relevant in the context of your business are so important to kind of influence and shift people's perspective.
Yeah, great answer. And I love my band too. Being dyslexic, I tend to forget my wallet or my bag or whatever. So having it attached to me means that I've still got a means to pay.
Yeah, no, it's hugely helpful. You know, and I'm sure from the Barclays side, you know, over the coming weeks and months, I can come on or nominate someone and we can do some interesting talks about how we're changing stuff around contactless in cash machines, how we're using Siri to make payments, and all these things that, you know, make things easier for people. But I think for me, wrapping up, you know, you threw at the end when you're looking ahead, talked about the community. And I think sometimes we see this in terms of the numbers of people on Twitter. But actually, when you think about the community of what it means to be an accessibility expert, we all know that in many organizations, these are just individuals, you know, they're one person, right? Or maybe they're a volunteer. So there's kind of, where do they go to kind of learn, share, grow from one another? Right. So I think for me, you know, AXSchat, yes, it's a Twitter community, but it's kind of creating a sense of identity, right? To being involved in something bigger than yourself. And I chuckle whenever I see the questions come out on AXSchat sort of week on week about, well, define what accessibility is and what usability is. And there's this whole, you know, barrage of different views and perspectives. But it strikes me that we are getting to a point where we have a consistent understanding of what accessibility is, of the profile, the agenda, and why it matters, why people sort of care. And I think that point about belonging to that community many people from many different organizations and industries has been huge, and there's nowhere else to go for that. So it kind of shows for me why this has grown, you know, so exponentially, and fingers crossed, you know, does so too into the future.
No, thank you. And they say it takes a village. Well, effectively, this is the village. You know, AXSchat is our village, and we hope to make a small town soon, or maybe a vast sprawling metropolis one day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, thanks you so
Paul.
much for your
Alrighty,
leadership and your support. We are very grateful.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.